Hi folks. Today this is going to be perhaps a shorter, more raw video. This is just me trying to get my thoughts in order on something. You see, there's something that's been sitting at the back of my mind for a few years now. It's sort of been gnawing away at me. And it's the feeling that something has gone wrong with our education system. And maybe you've been thinking this as well. Particularly, I've seen it in the universities, but it is possible that the problem is occurring even before students arrive at university. It feels to me that when we cast our minds back, even as recently as the 90s, but certainly the further back you go, the bigger the contrast you see between what a university student was capable of back then versus what they're capable of now. You see, nowadays, a university student or college student can graduate with a 2-1, maybe even a first, without being able to write worth a damn. Perhaps what's even worse is they have been given no regular training or education on how to write, on how to speak. You put one of these students in a room of only 10 other people and say the majority of those people are their colleagues, other students, and you ask them to speak for 5 minutes about anything they want, what you will likely see is a person start to fold in on themselves. Now, granted, they do leave university with more knowledge than they entered with, whether that's knowledge of particular literature, of science, but do they leave with any additional skills? The skills that used to be mastered at an institution like a university? I don't think they do. In fact, I think something weird has happened, sort of like a infantilization of the student, a coddling of the student. Everything seems to have shifted by one, perhaps more, orders of magnitude. And what I mean by that is, when I look at postgraduate students today, they are more akin to what undergraduate students of the previous era were like in terms of ability. And you can follow that down the line. You know, undergrads are more like secondary or high school students from the previous era, and on and on. And what I mean by that is, the postgraduate students that I meet, they have a certain confidence. They know what they know, but they also know that they have knowledge gaps and that is okay. They can think critically, they can write well, and they can actually speak in front of others. Now, most of them, when I ask them, how did you acquire those skills? What has changed between undergrad and postgrad? Almost always they will tell me that there was a compulsory writing or presentation skills course as part of their postgraduate degree. And this doesn't surprise me at all, because most of us require some teaching to develop proficiency in a particular skill. Now, I'm not saying you can't teach yourself things. Yes, you can teach yourself how to play the guitar, how to play golf, but you will always excel faster in the presence of a more experienced other. You can call this person a guide, a facilitator, a teacher, a lecturer, whatever you want. This is established pedagogy. And yet, why do we not make it compulsory for our undergrads to undergo a similar course? Do they not require these skills? The evidence says they do, and by evidence I refer to the endless hordes of graduates complaining about not being able to get an interview, or if they do manage to score an interview, they don't get the job. And you see this all over sites like LinkedIn. All that subject-specific knowledge is useless to them now without the corresponding communication skills. And I'm honestly not sure whose fault this is. Almost all lecturers I've worked with in my career have been utterly devoted to the students as a group. They want them to succeed. They see these problems and they fight against rubrics that give almost all the marks in, let's say, an essay. All the marks go to knowledge, and no marks, or barely any, are given to how the essay was written, the structure, the grammar. And the result of that are students who make grammatical errors and write sentences that go on for 8 lines or more, and they end up receiving 2 1s or a first. You see, there is no incentive to learn to write better in this system. Now, the students themselves, you could make an argument that they should shoulder some of the responsibility for this, insofar as we are each responsible for what happens to us in life. Many of those that I speak to have what I call the default student mindset. You know, and it goes like this. Okay, I've got an assignment, it's an essay. I need to write the essay to get the grade, to pass the module, to get the degree, to get the job. They have tunnel vision for the grade. And I can't blame them, because when I think back to my student days, I was pretty much the same. I would learn all the content for exams or for assignments. I would learn how to regurgitate it onto a page, and I got given a mark. After assignments or exams, I would almost immediately proceed to open up my brain and delete, to throw away all of my hard-gotten knowledge on the matter. In students, you'll see this. They do this mentally, but they also do it physically. They'll gather all their notes on that subject after the exam and throw it into a bin. And that's what they're doing up here too. And of course, that's what they're doing. They've got the mark. They don't need any of that anymore. That's their conceptualization of education. It wasn't until I was on the other side, as a lecturer, that I began to see assignments not as a series of grades to acquire, but a series of interrelated skill-building opportunities for the students. Now, the problem is most students don't see it like that. Now, if they did, they would immediately understand that what we're trying to do is to subtly teach them to write and to speak and to think. Perhaps that subtlety is the problem. Perhaps they do all need to be forced through a program in which there is 0 marks for content. Instead, they are marked solely on the quality of the writing, the quality of their speaking, their body language, their tone of voice, their thought, their critical thinking ability. This might sound ridiculous, but isn't that exactly how we measure those that we interact with on a near constant basis? It's certainly how we pick successful interview candidates. Of course, they do have to answer a series of questions, but anyone who thinks that interviews don't skew and bias towards people who are extremely proficient in communication and things like writing and speaking confidently, if you think that, you're insane. Many graduates I know who have managed to scrape through interviews ultimately arrive at their new workplace feeling kind of naked because they lack these key skills. Not exactly the feeling you want after 3+ years of higher education and a student loan debt. Perhaps this needs to be reflected in how the course is taught, and that could be the virtual learning environment that the university uses. In other words, the physical representation of the course or degree that the students interact with when they open up an assignment on their laptops, for example. Say it's one where they need to present a scientific article and critique it. Perhaps something akin to hashtags should appear at the top of the screen. For example, an assignment like that might have a tag called critical thinking, presentation skills, professional attire. And if they clicked one of these tags, that would direct the student to the previous assignment that they completed that had that tag on it. So they can access their personalized feedback from a related assignment. If we presented things explicitly to the students in this way, perhaps they may actually start to appreciate that although their degree is divided up into modules, the modules are not actually what distinguishes parts of the course from each other. It's the format of the assignments, and more specifically, the skills they are being asked to develop that distinguish parts of their course. Honestly, I think the saving grace might actually be the rise of AI tools like ChatGPT. I bet you didn't think I was going to say that. Now bear with me on this. Now that we're living in a time where students can use AI to write entire essays, and those essays currently get them a pass, maybe a slightly higher mark, but it'll only get better, and it is rapidly advancing. Someday soon, it will do first-class work. What's going to happen is lecturers will likely be forced sooner rather than later to adopt different assessment approaches. And this is already happening in baby steps. They've been experimenting with this with little success because they've been too conservative, in my opinion. For example, they've switched from essays to things like podcasts and presentations. But the students still use AI to write the scripts. Instead, I believe more drastic action is on the horizon, bringing in a student for a mini Viva where they must hold a discussion with you on the topic of their essay. And they'll be graded on their logic, the arguments they construct, and their understanding of the topic. You can't fake that face to face. And face to face, you don't have tools like AI hindering you. In my opinion, this is future-proof. Now, these problems I'm talking about, they're not exclusive to the UK, they're not exclusive to US colleges. Most of us are familiar with the work of Charlie Kirk and others, people without a traditional college or university education who appear to run rings around those with one. It's something I'm really interested in exploring further and reading up on further, and whether I really want to find out, are there other institutions out there who have identified this issue and already solved it, who have turned it around and started to produce high quality students as the norm. Things that come to mind, I've read a little bit about Hillsdale College. I think it's Catherine Birbalsingh School in England, they pop to mind, but as I say, these are raw thoughts just sort of popping out. I actually really want to hear from anyone down in the comments, what do you guys think has gone wrong with our education system? What has led to its decline? Was it ever any good? Or is it just nostalgia we look back on? Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.